How to make homemade artisan bread, easy and delicious recipe. Homemade artisan bread is a delicious treat that is easier to make than you might think. Here's a simple recipe to get you started. Ingredients: 3 cups all-purpose flour, 1½ teaspoons salt, 1 teaspoon instant yeast, 1½ cups warm water. Instructions: in a large mixing bowl, combine the flour, salt, and yeast. Add the warm water to the bowl and mix until the dough forms a shaggy, sticky ball. Cover the bowl with a damp kitchen towel and let it rest for 12 to 18 hours. This will allow the dough to rise and develop flavor. After the dough has risen, preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Place a Dutch oven or other heavy, oven-safe pot with a lid in the oven to heat up for at least 30 minutes. While the pot is heating up, dust your work surface with flour and dump the dough out of the bowl. It will be very sticky and bubbly. Fold the dough over itself a few times to create a ball shape. Dust the top with flour. When the pot is hot, carefully remove it from the oven and place the dough ball inside. Be careful not to burn yourself. Put the lid back on the pot and bake for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, remove the lid and continue baking for an additional 10 to 15 minutes, or until the bread is golden brown and crispy. Carefully remove the pot from the oven and use a spatula to lift the bread out. Let it cool on a wire rack for at least 10 minutes before slicing and serving. Enjoy your delicious homemade artisan bread. Sure, here are some additional tips and information to help you make the best homemade artisan bread possible. Flour. While all-purpose flour will work fine for this recipe, you can also use bread flour or a combination of bread flour and all-purpose flour for a chewier texture. Yeast. Instant yeast is recommended for this recipe, but you can also use active dry yeast. Just be sure to activate it in warm water before adding it to the flour mixture. Water. The water should be warm to the touch, but not too hot. If the water is too hot, it can kill the yeast. Resting time. The longer the dough rests, the more flavorful it will be. You can let it rest for up to 24 hours if you like, but 12 to 18 hours is usually sufficient. Dutch oven. Using a Dutch oven or other heavy, oven-safe pot with a lid creates steam inside the pot, which helps the bread rise and form a crispy crust. If you don't have a Dutch oven, you can use a baking sheet and create steam by placing a pan of hot water on the bottom rack of the oven. Shaping the dough. Don't worry too much about shaping the dough perfectly, it should be sticky and shaggy. Just fold it over itself a few times to create a ball shape. Cooling time. Letting the bread cool for at least 10 minutes allows the interior to set and makes it easier to slice. Variations. You can add herbs, spices, cheese, or other flavorings to the dough for a different twist on this basic recipe. Experiment and have fun. Certainly. Here are some additional tips and information to help you make the best homemade artisan bread possible. Oven temperature. It's important to preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 30 minutes before baking the bread. This ensures that the pot is fully heated and that the bread will cook evenly. Pot size. Make sure the pot you use is large enough to accommodate the dough ball. A 6 to 8 quart Dutch oven works well for this recipe. Pot material. A heavy pot made of cast iron or enameled cast iron works best for this recipe. These materials distribute heat evenly and retain it well, creating a crispy crust on the bread. Dusting. Be generous with the flour when dusting your work surface and the top of the dough ball. This prevents the dough from sticking to the pot and creates a nice, rustic look. Baking time. The baking time may vary depending on your oven and the size of the pot. Check the bread after 30 minutes and continue baking without the lid for an additional 10 to 15 minutes, or until the bread is golden brown and crispy. Storing. Homemade artisan bread is best eaten within a day or two of baking. After that, it can be sliced and frozen for later use. Experiment. Once you've mastered the basic recipe, feel free to experiment with different flours, herbs, spices, and other add-ins. There are endless variations to try.